Hello there, in this video we're going to cover how to repopulate forms whenever there is an error. So let's imagine that someone has a form and they fill out some big long description, for example, and they hit submit, but there's an error. Oh, now hold on a moment. This is from our last little exercise. I don't know if you followed that. Anyway, I'm assuming that you've got something like this, okay? So back to the page here. We're imagining that someone has filled out a long description and they press submit, and as you can see, there's some validation errors. However, look down here, the description has gone. And that's not too good. So we don't want the user to have to type everything again. And that's what we're talking about in this video. So the way that we're going to repopulate this is we're going to make a little method. Let's have it downstairs. And I'm going to call this one, let's see, how about underscore get data from post. Now, I've just added the underscore so that it's not accessible via the URL. The truth is, that's not even that important, but that's what I'm going to call it because it makes me feel kind of good. And what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to fetch the posted variables that we're interested in. So let's say data title. Now I'm building up a data array of key value pairs here, right? So data title is post title, comma true. Now that was all covered in the previous video or the previous page if you're looking at the docs. So let's have that. Let's also have the description. Let's have the author ID. And finally, let's have published. That's the one with the checkbox, okay? So we're building up this array and we're going to return our data array. That's all we're doing here, okay? So now back upstairs. When we call create here, you know what? I'm going to move this up to the top. It feels like a more appropriate place. All right, there we go. So when someone submits and when there's an error and it loads up create, well, let's go right to the top of this and we're going to say data is this get data from post. So that's going to fetch all of that stuff, and as you can see, we're now passing it into the form. So if we have a look at our views folder here and then open up create, well, now, because we've passed these values in, we can go through each of these form fields, and instead of just having it empty, we can now add in the values. For example, here's title, here comes description, okay, here's author ID, there we go, and even published. That's all going to work just fine. Okay, so now let's try this again. So we'll just assume here is a long description, and let's also choose, how about Jane Austen, and we'll tick published. Now keep in mind we have not added a title, so we should have an error here. The key thing is we don't want to have to type out the description again and select the author and all of that stuff. Here we go. And as you can see, our validation error is perfect and the form has been repopulated. Hallelujah. And your end users are going to be happy. Now there's just one more detail that I'd like to show you before we end this video. If you have a closer look at this author drop down, you'll see that one of the options is select author. And that doesn't really make sense. I mean, why would you want to go back and choose select author? Doesn't make sense. So let's do a quick fix for that. And to do that, we're going to have a little look at get author options. But this time, remember that we have fetched posted data. So we can actually say data and it's author ID. So even when the form gets presented for the first time, that will be an empty string, you see? So now we can go to get author options, and we're going to pass in selected author ID. And then we can just do a simple if statement. We're going to say if selected author ID is equivalent to an empty string, then and only then we're going to have this option available. So save that. Okay. And let's just give this a quick try. So I'm going to select Charles Dickens. I'm going to press submit. And if we click on the drop down, you'll see that we no longer have that annoying select author option here. However, if we go to /create first time visit, now we do have select author, and that is absolutely perfect.